As promised, we're finally going to take a look at the new Adidas boots. Today, we're going to be looking at the Adidas X 15.1. So without further ado, let's open up this box. So as I mentioned, the X 15.1 from Adidas. Opening it up. We've got a string bag, the speckling detail with the X logo, and DS football with the neon green strings. Put that off to the side. And let's get the boots out. Taking a look at the boots, being an entirely new silhouette, we do have a lot to go over. Starting with the upper, Adidas has ditched the hybrid touch synthetic and replaced it with what they're calling X skin. Taking a look, if we can get this in focus, it's going to be a little tough here. You can see that there are these dimples that run across the entire upper. I think you can see a pretty good detail there. And those run across the entire upper of the boot, around the heel as well, not that you really need it, but it is a good thing to know that they do cover any material that is made up of that X skin. That X skin is surrounded across the middle of the foot, on both the lateral and the medial side, by what they're calling the X cage. Being the X boot, they do have a lot of things that continue with that kind of X theme. The X cage, I'll talk about a little bit more in a little bit more detail later, but it's just going to kind of wrap from here and around the laces, there and there, and then it continues around, going back to that X skin around the back with that Adidas branding, which normally I wouldn't like, but I think it actually looks pretty good with this boot, the black against that bright green, bright yellow. This boot is a bit more of a yellow rather than a green. It's almost like a highlighter yellow. Around the toe of the boot, you do have this kind of black, a little bit smoother material without the dimples. However, it's not an area that will give you too much control on the ball anyway, so it's not going to make much of a difference for you there. The synthetic is pretty soft. I was pretty surprised about how kind of smooth and soft it was. It does have a bit of a padding, not much, it is very thin, but it definitely does have a bit of a padding on the inside. Not that I can really show you that there, but you'll just have to take my word for it. As you come around right here, this is where you have a little bit extra padding rather than just the one layer of kind of really, really, really thin foam. Right here, as well as right here, as you go back, you add a bit of an actual padding where it feels like they've added a pad. It's kind of hard to explain. I wish I could show you an inside look at the boot, but obviously that'd be pretty tough. One thing I could equate this to would be almost like a blister pad. It's really, really thin, but it's definitely something you can get a little bit of a feel. You can feel the difference as you're going. If you're running your hand down the inside of the boot, you can feel where it kind of comes up a little bit. But I don't think it's anything that's going to be an issue. I think it might just kind of add to a little bit more comfort for the boot. I'll be able to talk a little bit more of that once I try these on. That padding stops right about here on either side, here on this side as well. And you just have that X skin and the X cage running up the majority of your foot. As you come back to where your heel cup is, you don't have an external heel cup on this as you do on the Ace, but you do have a bit of padding on the inside. So I can get you guys a look at that. So there you can see the padding where it comes out a bit, and you have it on this side as well. It's tough to see, but I hope you guys can get a look at that. We'll talk about the kind of collar in a second. The X cage I think is a really good addition. It kind of looks like it would just act as a visual aesthetic addition to the boot, but it's actually going to lock your foot down and give you quite a bit of support, much like Nike's Flywire with the flywire that wraps around the laces. So as you tighten it, it gives you full lateral support from side to side to prevent rollover. This is going to act pretty similar. Because it is a bit firmer, obviously it's still pliable, it's still flexible, but because it is a bit firmer than the X skin upper, it will give you a bit of support, and as you tie this boot up, it's going to hold that shape throughout the boot, preventing rollovers. So when you plant and turn and change directions, you're not going to get that rollover that you'll get in a boot similar to, say, the Nike Hybrid Venom, which, as I've mentioned in previous videos, does suffer from a bit of rollover for not having that lateral support throughout the boot. Again, I'll speak more on this as we try the boot on, but I just want to give you the initial impressions of this upper and how it's going to perform. So guys, the one thing that's probably most notable on this boot is this kind of collar that's going to hug your ankle. It's made out of this elasticated neoprene type material. You can see that it stretches pretty well. It comes up around the heel, not too much higher than the regular cut of the boot or a typical cut. It's not going to be like the mid-cut design of the Nikes they've been used to seeing. But the idea of this is to give you a bit of a more snug fit and kind of lock your foot down into that. But again, we'll take a look at that once I try these on. So we unlace these a little bit. You'll be able to see a little bit closer. That neoprene sock liner just stops kind of about mid-foot. See there. And it's just connected to that traditional tongue with only maybe 6 or 7 stitches. You can see there. If it does come undone, I don't think it's anything that's going to pose an issue for you. But it is one thing to note that when you try these on, your initial reaction kind of is to pull this up as well as pull the tongue up. And pulling those both separate is going to put a lot of strain on those. You can see the only stitches holding that together is the stitches that come across this kind of lace holder here. So you can see there's only maybe 6 or 7 stitches that can run across there. It is double stitched, but still, I don't know how durable this is going to be. I don't know how durable the neoprene sock liner itself is going to be, but time will just have to tell with that. But again, it is connected right there. The sock liner does stop right about here, about mid-foot. Hopefully you can see that on camera pretty well. But it does wrap the entire heel. It goes down around the back of the heel and makes up that kind of heel cup to kind of lock your foot in place. Take a look at the insole for this boot. It is fully removable with this kind of synthetic suede material, this carbon fiber print. It's just one layer of thin black foam. See there? And that's about it for the upper of this boot. One thing I didn't mention was you do have the symmetrical lacing, so you're going to get a good fit with that. I'm happy with that. I'm glad they didn't go with a asymmetrical lacing because I'm never really a huge fan. So again, you do have the symmetrical lacing on these right up the middle. Flipping these over to take a look at the outsole, this is where things get a little bit interesting compared to the previous Adidas models. So you guys taking a look at one of the F50 Adi Zeros, you can see that the stud patterns are relatively similar. The back is almost identical with the triangulated studs. The only difference is on the X, it does have cuts out in the triangle. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. It looks like it's kind of tough to see there. And you can see that the triangles are cut out on the X, whereas on the F50 Adi Zero, they're the regular triangles. Looking at the forefront of the foot, you can see that, again, they're very similar. The same thing with the cuts. The X has the cuts out of the triangles on the flat side, the longer flat side there. And then one difference, this boot has that one single stud right in the middle, whereas on the X, you'll get a row of shorter, still hard plastic studs that kind of run through the center of your foot there. This boot is designed to be played with on firm ground and artificial grass. I'll talk more about that towards the end of the video, but I think those studs are going to be aimed more towards the artificial grass traction part of it, whereas these bladed studs are a bit longer. Will give you more grip on more of the firm ground, regular natural grass playing surfaces. So I think I've covered all of the initial impressions of this boot as well as some of the new tech from Adidas on this new silhouette. Let's go take a look on feet. I'll let you guys know how they feel. So as you can see on feet, they do look pretty good, especially against the white socks. They feel comfortable, but not quite what I was expecting. I'm wearing a size 9 US, which is my true size. I tried on a 9.5 as well, and those feel just a little bit too big. But the 9 feels really, really snug, actually. They do look pretty wide with just the way the lacing system is, but they're actually designed to be like that. The X cage on the side comes pretty shallow up the side of your foot, so when you lace it up, it does look pretty wide compared to what you're used to seeing on a soccer cleat. But they run very true to size width-wise as well as in addition to length-wise. The studs have a really good grip in the ground. Just from walking around and kind of turning, you can feel that they do have a pretty good bite to them. Again, they are that bladed stud configuration, so they're going to be pretty aggressive. But continuing on to one of the things that I was the most curious about was this neoprene sock liner, and I'm not super happy with it. You can see as I kind of plant my heel and walk around a bit, you can see that my heel, even just while walking, is slipping out, and I'm not feeling that I have that locked-in sensation that you're expected to get with that sock liner. I think that's why it's there, is to give you that locked-in feel. and that's not what I'm getting with this boot. I want to say you get that fit, and it is a great boot, but I just can't quite say that right now with that feel. The 9.5s is much worse, obviously being a little bit bigger, and I know if I size down to an 8.5, the toe box would be much too small for my foot, so I'm not sure if there's anything you can really do about that heel slippage. While the inside of the Nike skin is a synthetic suede, the heel cup, again, is made up of that neoprene, and that neoprene is pretty slippery, so against a cotton sock or a cotton blend sock, you're going to get not much real friction between those two. The plus for this boot, in addition to the studs, the upper does feel really soft. It doesn't feel like there'll be much of a break-in period. The sole plate felt like it had the right stiffness. As you saw with the initial impressions, it does have some cuts out in the sole plate, allowing for a little bit more flexibility as well as decreasing a slight bit of weight. And I felt like these were really comfortable, just kind of with that flexibility of the sole plate. The upper is really soft. That X skin feels great on foot. I'd be curious to give these a full play test just to see how they really perform. But it feels soft. It feels like the right thickness that I like. As I mentioned before in previous videos, I like a little bit of cushioning, but nothing too much and nothing too thin. I felt like these boots had that right blend of that tiny bit of cushioning with that thin layer of synthetic. This boot checks out really well in my opinion. The only downside I can say is that heel cup with the slippage. And as well as some of the durability issues that might arise. Well, I can't say they will for sure. It does seem like that neoprene connection to the tongue might rip, but again, it doesn't seem like it'll make an issue. Even if it does, it's not something that I think will affect how they feel and how they perform. So not too much to worry about there. So guys, that was a look at the brand new Adidas X 15.1. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that on-feet look. All in all, really happy with this boot. Really impressed with the upper. That new X skin material is really nice. Seems to perform really well. Obviously the one issue I have is that heel cup slippage. It'd be interesting to see how that turns out once the sole plate breaks in a little bit, gets a little more flexible. Hopefully those issues would go away, but it's not something I can tell you about right now. Just from my initial impressions, I am getting a little bit of heel cup slippage, and that's what's turning me away from the boot. These do retail at $220. They are available on our site at eastcoastsoccershop.com, so check that out if you're interested. We do have a lot of detailed shots of these boots up on our Instagram at ECSoccerShop, so check that out there. We will have the new Adidas Ace boot review coming in the next day or two, so be on the lookout for that. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this boot review, and we'll see you in the next video.